Hey there, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you have been here before. Today I'm going to be showing you how to use the HTVRont Tumbler Heat Press. I purchased this. I did not get it for free. So you'll definitely get an honest opinion from me about it. It's fairly straightforward. I've done these tumblers already. I'm going to show you how to actually do this tumbler in particular during this video. It's pretty fun. And I did experiment with a different tumbler wrap earlier just to get a feel for it. So without further ado, let's get into how to make a 20-ounce skinny tumbler using the HTVRont tumbler press. Okay, let's talk about how to figure out what size you need to create your design because all of these tumblers are different sizes. I mean, there's kind of a general range of like 9 by 8 roughly, but you know, you need to check with your particular tumbler. Now, this one, the PYD Life one that I've got, it does come with a template. Like, it shows you in the little book what size a full wrap template is supposed to be. However, if you want your template to be seamless, this is not correct. This is actually a little bit too big. Like, it says 9.37, and that's great if you want it to overlap, you know, so you can really get it tight. But if you want it to like butt right up against itself, like the edges, so that it's seamless, this is a little bit too big. So what I do is I take like a flexible sort of paper kind of measuring tape, and I'll just go around the template, you know, the actual tumbler, to get close. So like I'm probably about 9.25. It is on an angle, so it's not going to be a perfect dimension, but it's pretty close. So that's what I'm going to size my print to. And then for height, the height is probably fine. Although this says 7.9, and this is really more like 7 and 7/8, so 7.825 really. So the full wrap template is a little bit bigger than the actual tumbler. So just always check that, especially if you're doing something where you have to have the edge of your design butt right up against itself so that it's like a seamless wrap. I also want to mention that getting the seams to be completely seamless, it's kind of a trial and error process. I print the design out using like, you know, regular ink on regular paper, not at a high quality, multiple times until I get the width exactly correct, where the seams line up just perfectly once you've trimmed off the excess. That's kind of a trial and error process. You can resize these things in programs like Canva, Paint, Photoshop, GIMP, things like that. So that's how I do it, and it might be the most tedious part of the entire process, just to warn you. Once you've printed out your template, you're going to want to trim off all the white. If you've got a paper trimmer that you know is reliable, where you can line it up exactly with the cutting blade, great. You know, use that for sure. That's the easiest thing. I'm going to use a T-square with a self-healing mat and an X-Acto knife. So I'm going to take my T-square and like set it up against the edge of the mat. And then I have to adjust the paper, and you're better off cutting it off a little bit the first time, like outside the edge if you need to, rather than going too far. And it's important that you get all of the white off, because whatever you don't cut off, like I've missed a little bit here, that's going to show on your sublimation. So be careful. Make sure you do it correctly. Then you're going to want to clean your tumbler before you put it on there. So I use isopropyl alcohol. You could use a cotton ball. I'm just using a Kleenex. And I stick my hand inside it, and then I go over the surface with the alcohol on the Kleenex, just to clean off any handprints or oil that I may have inadvertently gotten on the blank when I was moving it around, because that can interfere with the transfer of the ink to the surface. And then I'll kind of buff it a little bit. And I can just air dry it. Air dries really fast. Okay, so when you wrap your tumbler, you're gonna need heat resistant tape. The tumbler press does come with a roll of heat resistant tape, so that makes it easy. I haven't cut off the top white edge because I'm not too concerned about that right now. I just want to check and make sure that it lines up. So this is where it gets really, really difficult, because you want to line the pieces of paper. You want no seam. And because this is a design that like lines up with itself, any opening between the paper edges is going to leave a white line. So I'm like kind of squeezing as I'm going to make sure that I'm getting it like as tightly together. And then I'm just taping it in specific, like as a little bit as I go down the tumbler. I'm gonna flip it over. So hopefully you can tell, like I'm trying to get no seam. And I'm just doing like every inch or so to start with. And then once I've got it like together all the way down, I will then tape this way. All right, and then I want to show you that like on the bottom edge, the design is going a little bit off, and around the top edge, the design is a little bit above the rim. Because the way I want to tape this, I don't want to wrap it around the edge. That's what I'm going to try. May not work, because I want to show you on this one, because people complain a lot about ghosting with this tumbler press. So this very first one that I did, it came out pretty cute, and it's a little bit weird because it has this lip on the top, so that doesn't make it that easy to work with, and you can see my seam and stuff. But I wrapped it around the bottom really well, like really well. But you can still see right along the edge, you can kind of see where like the paper folded as I was bending it around the bottom edge. And there is a little bit of that up here too. It's not quite as obvious because this kind of fades out to white, but you can see it a little bit, like here. So I don't think that like wrapping it around the bottom edge, especially if you have like a colored background going on white, I don't think that's really going to work too well. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cuts my tape into small pieces, and I'm going to take a roll that's like not cut. I'm going to take these off. Now that I have this like wrapped, my touching it won't affect it now. Okay, so now I'm going to go like right up to the top edge, and I'm going to stretch it out, and I'm just going to press it down. And rather than wrapping it at the bottom here, I'm going to just trim it off. And then I'm just using my thumb, and I'm just really burnishing this seam down. If you've got a scraper of some kind, you can use that, because I just want to make sure that the edges of where the paper comes together is like pressed down really well. All right, and so then around the top edge and the bottom edge, I'm going to tape all the way around, and I'm going to like pull as I tape. So I'm not going to wrap it. Like I don't want to get the weird wrinkles that I got in the last one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull as I'm like putting this down, because I just really want to get really good contact between the design and the blank all the way around. I am a little concerned about it. I'm not sure, like I feel like I'm going to get a white edge. So now what I'm going to try to do, I am going to try to wrap it. Let me do the same thing across the top too. And since the paper kind of goes up higher than the top edge, I'm going to like tape it sort of halfway on and halfway off the tumbler. And you can see how like the paper's started to rivel, but I think when I look at it, it looks like I've got really good contact on the top edge, so I'm good with that. Because the bottom edge rounds a little bit, it's not totally touching. So I'm gonna do something weird. I'm gonna cut some slits in here, just in this tiny, tiny edge, because I wanna avoid the paper folding over on itself, because I think that's what caused the issue on the other tumbler, is like the paper folded over on itself, so it didn't have like equal amounts of the ink kind of showing all the way around. So I've kind of made little slits that are probably about 1/4 inch apart. I'm thinking I'm going to take the smaller pieces of tape, but I'm going to like get them on the printout, and then I'm going to fold it over really, really hard, really like pushing down on it a fair amount. And I'm hoping that I can avoid the wrinkles by cutting those slits, and that like things will just fold across each other, so we won't lose any of the ink on the parts that are folded over. Okay, so that's the way my bottom is taped. Here's my seam that I've burnished down pretty well. I'm a little concerned about it because it seems a little bit weird up here, like it might go over itself. And then my top edge. All right, so I'm good to go. So now it's time to heat up the tumbler press and sublimate this guy. Okay, so here's your HTVRont tumbler press, and it comes like this. It has a cord, obviously. It comes with the heat gloves, and it comes with that roll of heat transfer tape that I was using to tape up the solid parts, the solid pieces of tape. So that's what it comes with. And then it has a little product manual, but it has this little chart in here. So it shows you, depending on the type of tumbler you're using, how much time you can sublimate it for and what your temperature range should be. So this says 120 to 240 seconds, 370 to 390 Fahrenheit, or 188 to 199 Celsius. I'm set on Fahrenheit because I'm in the US. So I'm going to go at 390, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my tumbler in with the, I'll put it with the seam facing the front. I'm going to let it go for like 90 seconds, and then I'm going to turn it around so that then the seam's facing backwards, and do it for another 90 seconds. So I'm doing a total of 180 seconds at 390, but I'm going to set it for 90 seconds, and then it'll beep at me and tell me when to switch it around. So if I turn it on, you'll see that I've already set it at 390 and 90 seconds. But to change that, like when you first get it, it's set at a different temperature. So all you have to do is press the little temperature guy here. It starts to blink, and then you can go down by like 5 degrees or up to whatever temperature you want. And 390 is as high as it goes. And then you do the same thing for the time. So you press the little clock button, the time starts to blink, and then you can go down by 5 seconds or up by 5 seconds. And you can go up quite a bit, like you can go up to, I don't know, 10 minutes or some ridiculous amount. So I've set it, and now I just have to wait for it to heat up, and the little red button will turn green and it'll beep when it's ready. So one thing that you should have, so you need to use your heat gloves, especially after you've heated this, because it's going to be super hot. You also should, you don't have to, but I think it's a good idea, wrap your tumbler in some butcher paper, parchment paper, some kind of paper, to protect the inside of the tumbler press, this surface in here, it's getting hot, from ink coming through on the paper, on your printer paper. So I'm gonna make sure my seam's about halfway on this side, like so, and then I'm just gonna fit it in. And then you just want to make sure that the actual tumbler itself is kind of in the center of the area that comes together, because this is what like squeezes shut to do the heating. Okay, it's ready to go. So I've got my tumbler in my little basket of parchment paper here. I'm just going to fit it through. Make sure it's kind of in the middle. That looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to hit green. So it squeezes shut and then it counts down. And I do want to tell you that this is a very stinky, smelly process. There are lots of fumes that come off of this. So I do suggest you be in a very well ventilated area or open a window, because like I'm in a small room and it's pretty bad in here. So I actually open the window, not super wide because it is winter here, but I do open it like probably 6 inches so I can get some air flowing through. So that's the first 90 seconds. So I'm going to reach in here, which I'm going to put out. Very carefully flip this around and just feeding it back in and hitting the green button. Okay, and I'm just pulling it out. It's really smelly. Like, I don't know if you can see the fumes coming off, but there's fumes coming off of this. Okay, and the parchment paper is a little bit burned. That's to be expected. I'm going to set it up like that, and I am just going to leave it till I'm going to wait till it's completely cooled to unwrap it. Okay, it's completely cooled down. And I don't know if you noticed, but the tape did not hold, like it kind of, because I used the smaller pieces, it was sort of lifting when I took it out of the heat press when it was hot. So might be a better idea to do the same technique, but use a solid piece of tape possibly. Not sure. Hopefully we'll see how this turns out. Okay. For the vast majority, this came out great. If you look around the top edge, there is no ghosting at all, which is fantastic. Now I do have an issue with how I lined up you can see here, there's a little bit of white from where I didn't quite match up my seams. And same with up here. That's not a big deal. But I do want to point out that we've still got the weird problem with the kind of ghosting along the bottom edge. So I might have been better off not folding it over at all and just having like a straight edge where the black meets the white bottom all the way around. That probably would have been a better idea. It's not a huge problem because really, like when you stand it up, you don't really notice that. If you're really looking, you can see it, but you don't totally notice it. But overall, I mean, it came out great. And my technique at the top worked really well. All right, so I did want to show you that I did a third tumbler here where I did not wrap the bottom edge. I just did the same technique of like pulling the tape really tight around the edge on this one as well. But you can see like the result, I think the result's even worse. I mean, it's not really terrible, but it's not good. So I think basically I am not wrapping these properly. That would be my best guess, because the color transfer is phenomenal on this. I mean, like the tumbler press itself is doing a really great job sublimating the designs onto the blanks. The only issue is this curved surface on the bottom edge, because on the two where I just pulled it really tight along the top, they came out perfectly. So it's just this curved bottom edge that is giving me problems. And I think that might be more user error than it is machine error. So if anybody has any suggestions for how to try taping this in a better way than what I've done to get to minimize this result, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I do think that this one is the one that turned out the best, where I cut the slits and then turned it that way. But I might try sort of a hybrid between the two methods, where like I run a whole piece of tape and tuck it really tight and then push it down, just going one direction the whole time, to see if that makes a difference. But that will be in a future video, obviously. So I will keep experimenting with this, to try to find a technique that's going to solve this issue, but it is a problem. The other thing that you might consider if you're worried about this is getting a tumbler blank that has more of a straight edge along the bottom. So where it comes to like a really flat bottom as opposed to this sort of curved edge along the bottom, that would solve that problem. Like if you didn't have this slight curve here, I'm sure it would turn out just like this did. You know, perfect along the edge. So that's another thing that you might want to consider if you're thinking about purchasing one of these. I do think it does a great job transferring the color. Like I have no complaints about that. The heating is easy. The use of it is easy. It's transferring the color beautifully. It's just this strange taping issue on anything that's curved that I'm struggling with. So if you have a suggestion, again, please leave it in the comments. All right, guys, I hope you found that helpful, and I hope you try the HTVRont tumbler press, because I think it's pretty cool. Please give me a like and a thumbs up, and leave me a comment. Those two things really, really help out my channel. They help me out with the algorithm, and they don't cost you anything to do those, but they really support my channel, and I appreciate that. I also want to let you know that I have a resource library on my website with free SVG and some sublimation designs. It's kind of a work in progress, but these 3 designs will be there and available for free download. So I'll link that in the video description so you can sign up for my email list and get access to those. All right, thank you so much, you guys. If you make some tumblers, I'd love to hear how your experience is with this tumbler press, or if you have a different tumbler press that you like and you don't have this issue with, I'd love to hear about that as well. Thanks so much. Have a great day.